Hello and welcome to this special edition of Access Sacramento's LiveWire. I'm your guest host, Ed Fletcher. I'm a longtime reporter in Sacramento and a longtime board member of Access Sacramento, and I'm stepping in hosting for Ray Tatter, who's been a longtime host of the show. Today's show is a special edition about justice for George and the Sacramento protests here in Sacramento. We are streaming on social media. We are live on Access Sacramento Channel 17, and we are streaming live on the internet. So if you're seeing this now, please share this with your friends so that you can amplify the message and let people know about this content. We're going to be talking to Mayor Darrell Steinberg about some busy news events in Sacramento and where we go from here. We'll talk to then a panel of African-American leaders, Kiara Reed, Jerry Simpson, and Kyrie Malik Moore. It's going to be an exciting time, but I wanted to sort of set up how we got here with the video. So let's go ahead and play that video now, and then we'll jump into our conversation with Mayor Darrell Steinberg. Are we going? Yeah, so, all right, we're trying to play.
George Floyd. George Floyd.
George Floyd.
Eric Garner.
All right, so we're going to play another video, but all of this started with the May 25th death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And what started with angry protests there quickly spilled into protests across Sacramento. And for many Sacramento residents, it was a chance to try to address some unmet goals after the death of Stephon Clark. So the response by the city and by mayors across the country were to use National Guard to try to tamp down the violent protest and in some cases looting that took place. So let's get the mayor on now, and let's talk about what his administration is doing, what he's doing to try to bring people together. And I understand today was a busy day for you.
It was. It's great to be with you. Thank you for having me. Today was a busy day. Today was a day spent reflecting. It was a day with leaders throughout the community to, as I said many times today, to dig deeper and to begin thinking about not just how we get back to normal and, quote, get through this, but how we change what is normal and how we rectify not just the death of George Floyd, but what it represents, the historic discrimination and mistreatment and often abuse of African Americans, especially African American males. And so today I rallied with the community. I prayed. I spent some time with Stephon Clark, who has emerged with his charismatic personality and his peaceful nature to be a real leader in this period of time, and to work towards not just healing, but towards justice.
Okay, I appreciate the symbolism there and the spirit of coming together there, and I wished we saw that at the national level as well. As I mentioned before, a lot of this felt like Stephon Clark 2.0, with the protesters who felt like they wanted to see those officers arrested, didn't see that. We did see some system change from those events, but for a lot of people, there's still some unmet goals there Specifically, some people wanted me to ask about use of force rules and the police department there. How much more change do we need? What other policy changes do we need to move closer to enacting our vision?
Well, first of all, you're right that after the Stefan Clark shooting, the city went through quite a period of reflection and then action. I know that the Clark shooting was one of the impetus for AB 392, which is mayor of the city. I was actually one of the few mayors to come out in strong support of 392 to change the use of force policy, to make sure that the shooting is a last resort when pursuing a fleeing suspect or a direct confrontation between a police officer and an individual, that it is a last resort and not one of the first things that that an officer can do, to make it easier, frankly, to prosecute officers who violate the basic idea that deadly force or force that has the potential to cause serious injury should be a last resort, that de-escalation, that using less forceful means to try to address any kind of a situation must be the first priority. And so now that is the law. And that came out of the Stefan Clark shooting. The city's own use of force policy changed, where we no longer allow foot pursuits, except again in extraordinary circumstances or as a last resort, to avoid that confrontation that so often can lead to tragedy. But you ask, is that the end of the story? Of course not. And certainly the George Floyd killing, and it was a killing, shows us how much more we have to do. For example, the policy that continues to exist even in our own police department that does allow, as a last resort, not as a first resort, the use of restraint around the neck and the throat. In my opinion, that should be taken out of the books here because it can too often lead to serious injury or death. I mean, look what happened to George Floyd. I mean, that went on for 10 minutes. And that kind of procedure, especially when somebody is already subdued, is what made that video and what makes this story so sickening to so many people, and why the call for change once again is so loud. And so when I say that I spent a day reflecting, the way I put it, somebody asked me, what was it like to take the knee and to be with your community? Well, it was very comforting to be with my community, but as I was kneeling, I was also thinking to myself, what is most important is to not be comfortable, not just today, but throughout the rest of my life, and certainly throughout the rest of my public leadership, because it's the discomfort that gives me the greatest hope that we can further change what is broken. The idea that we're going to, quote, get through this. And of course, we must have peace in our community. But ultimately, there is no peace without real justice. And so I don't want to just get through this. It's not what I want to do. I want to be part of the change. And for me, been doing this a long time, 24 years. I have a very progressive record of achievement. I can list all the things I've done to try to lead on racial equity, on economic equity. And you know what? It may matter to me, and it matters to the people who I've helped, but it really doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter. What matters is how leaders, especially leaders who may be a little bit more seasoned, or shall I say older, like myself, who have been around a long time, how we in fact go even deeper and improve our own leadership so that we can not just hear, but listen and then respond in ways that are more meaningful. And that's a great challenge. And it is not easy when you're trying to deal with looting and you're trying to deal with massive property destruction. And of course, you're in the middle and, everybody is upset rightfully, but I can take that. What I want to do is be one who is on the front line of helping to lead the change.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, I was on the sort of front lines reporting on the Stephon Clark protests, and one of the observations I had was that for the most part, the Sacramento Police Department didn't want to confront the protesters. They wanted to let them go where they wanted to go, as long as it wasn't the freeway and as long as it wasn't causing damage. So it didn't seem like characteristic Darrell Steinberg that you would be inviting the National Guard to station in our city. Talk about the decision to do that, and how do you decide when this is enough? Let's go back to being a city.
So I appreciate you saying that's not characteristic Darrell Steinberg, because it is not. And I view the decision to bring in the National Guard and the curfew together as a necessary but really reluctant decision. And it continues to be that. And of course, not immune to criticism, and it's part of what you sign up for, but of course, significant criticism that we did not bring in the National Guard or impose a curfew a day earlier, because remember, there were 2 days worth of, 2 nights worth of significant property damage. And so I felt that after 2 nights of this, where the police had tried to prevent it. The second night, certainly, they had enhanced their mutual aid with other neighboring law enforcement jurisdictions. And still, we had millions of dollars worth of destruction of property of business owners, by the way, none of whom are the cause of the community or the nation's anguish. They're just people, who've spent their life trying to build businesses and employ a lot of people. And I felt that it was very important to distinguish between peaceful protest, and by the way, peaceful does not mean passive, but peaceful protest, and the kind of looting and destruction and crime, frankly, that we saw in our community on Saturday and Sunday night. A curfew certainly gives our city one additional tool to be able to proudly allow protests, the kind that's going on outside of my window as we speak here at City Hall, during the daylight hours, but at night to keep people safe for now, including the protesters themselves, to say that we're going to have everybody go inside at 8 o'clock. This is not going to be forever. In fact, it's going to be a short time. We're going to try to keep the peace, so to speak, not, again, to quote, get through this, but the balance says, let's do this for a few more days. Let's start fresh next week. I don't like any of it, but I think it's necessary.
Do you need some agreement or some sort of win locally so that you ensure that when you do pull them out, that looting doesn't start again?
I am certainly open to what that short-term win would be. And I know the police chief and others are trying to show in the most genuine way that I can that I get it. And even that which I don't get, I'm humble enough to admit it and to say that I don't want to be comfortable. I don't want to get through this. I want to look at my own values, my own background, who I am at this stage of my life, my own history, what motivated me to become a public official, what drives me, and I want to understand even more than I think I understand. And I want to be a better leader. And I don't know whether all of that is accomplished in the next number of days. I'm out there every day with my head and my heart in the mission of healing this city, to fight for economic inclusion, especially, which has been a hallmark of my mayorship from the very beginning, and to, yes, bring this city together in a way that represents love, change, and the continued search in real ways for justice.
Okay, well, I appreciate those thoughts, Mayor Steinberg. We're going to leave it at that with you. I know you need to move on to some other things, and we've got a panel of African-American community members that we want to talk to about some of these issues. Again, appreciate you being on, Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you so much, Ed. I appreciate it. I'll come on again anytime if you'll have me.
Thank you. Will do.
Thank you.
All right. All right. We're going to play another video here. This was the video we wanted to play at the open, but we'll play it now. And then we're coming back with Kiara Reed, Jerry Simpson, and Kyrie Malik Moore.
In the wake of the May 25 death of the unarmed black man George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, angry protests have sprung up there, but since across the country, including Sacramento. For many Sacramento residents, it was Stephon Clark's 2.0, a chance to make good on failed efforts to see charges brought in the 2000 police shooting. While most of the protesters were peaceful, the 2 nights of protests resulted in wide-scale vandalism, broken windows, and stores looted. In the wake of the violence and unrest, National Guard troops have been deployed in Sacramento and cities across the country. Despite the extra police presence, protesters have broken curfew in nonviolent action. Today, we'll talk to Mayor Darrell Steinberg and 3 community leaders about where we go from here.
All right, welcome to the program, Kiara Reed, Jerry Simpson, Kyrie Malik Moore. Kiara Reed is a marketing professional here in Sacramento, Uptown Studios. Jerry Simpson, a local artist and gallery owner. Kyrie Malik Moore, a poet and photographer here in Sacramento. Our time is short, and we're going to have to talk more on some future times here, but wanted to get your impressions of where we're at and everything that's happened. And I hate to kind of focus this on white people, but this grew out of my decision to kind of start talking about what's happening and race. And so then I got asked to sort of step in to do this hosting. But I wanted to offer maybe Kiara first or Jerry, your thoughts on the tactics of the protests and how it went from peaceful to some looting.
I can go first.
Go ahead.
I think, I'm not sure that protesters and looters are the same folks.
We're missing her sound there.
Can you hear me?
All right, keep talking now. Nope.
All right. I don't know that protesters and looters are the same folks. What I do know is that folks who are out and taking to the streets are frustrated. I do feel for those small businesses that have lost money, lost property, and lost damages. I feel for them. I love small businesses. I'm a local girl, but at the same time, what the Black community has lost is so much more than any small business could imagine. So it's about time that people are taken to the streets. People are fed up. There's no more time to wait. We've been waiting for 600 years of slavery, years of oppression, of Jim Crow, and people are frustrated. And I think that's where that comes from.
Jerry, do you want to, as a property owner, what were your thoughts about young people tearing it up in the streets? How do you balance the anger with the destruction?
Well, like Kiera says, I don't know if looters and protesters are the same. I think the majority of the people that were out there for the reason of standing up for Mr. Floyd. But when you get people that have other agendas that come along and decide that they want to throw their fire into the plant, it makes it hard for the people that are really out there for the real purpose to get their point across. We have always had people tag along with us when it comes to us trying to protest to get our point across, which always muddies the water. So I think we need to take a real good look back, relax, take the time out to understand that we're there for a real reason, not for the purpose of trying to just get sensational headlines.
Malik, I wanted you to talk about why now. I saw one of my friends who maybe not paying much attention, happened to be white, says, why did this man's death cause such an uproar? And I think the mayor kind of answered some of that, but from your perspective, why does this turn so big?
Well, if you think about the last time, specifically in Minneapolis, with Philando Castile, the uproar wasn't as great, right? It wasn't. It was. We sat back, we waited to see what would happen, and justice would be served. And this situation, it was like more of the same. You know, here it is again, and it's not just happening there. If you look within a short amount of time, we had Breonna Taylor, who was killed in her own home. And months before that, we had somebody else who was just, again, we're being killed at random, and we don't see the justice being served as far as officers being charged immediately or officers being convicted of crime. So this is just a mass, a ball or a snowball of frustration that we have as a community.
Okay. Want to start talking about solutions and the question of what do we want? And if we were in the crowd, we would all yell justice. But what does justice mean, and how do we get there? How do we write that down? Is it a bill? Is it more people in jail? What does, quote unquote, protesters? What do the protesters want?
Well,
Kyrie?
I believe the job, the position of being a policeman is a calling versus it being a job. So we have to make certain that the people that take on the job as being police are suited to be police. You know, when we go out and we always hear about when it's a black man at the end who's on drugs or whatever the case may be, we need to be more, how can I say it? We need to know what the situation was with the policeman when he arrested these people or when he shot the person. Was he on drugs? Was he having a mental situation? We need to be more open with that type of stuff.
I agree with Scott. As far as mental health testing, I also would say that so mental health is a big piece. If you look at the domestic violence rates, there's a large amount of law enforcement officers that commit domestic violence. That's one of the reasons why they send so many cars to the houses when there's a domestic violence call, because these officers are worked hard or whatever it is. But I think drug testing when shootings happen. Also, I go back to saying the training. These officers are operating within how they're trained, and that's why you see it happens. These incidents happen so many times because it's in their training, and that's how they get away with it. So I think one thing is, touching on the mental health aspect of it, evaluations on a quarterly basis or whatever it is, but also going back and changing how these cops are trained and what they're allowed to do, and then the reviewing it. One thing I'll say real quick is I also work in education, and I work in an environment where we have the right to restrain children, and we took a different perspective and different idea or way of thinking is that we don't restrain the kids. We actually give them ways. We talk it out, and we have more nonviolent situations going. So I'll just say that goes into how we were trained.
Yeah, I think I agree with both the gentlemen here, and I think also investing in our communities and I've heard a lot about dismantling the police and dismantling white supremacy. I'm not sure if defunding the police is abolitionist in thought, but I do know that if we're investing in our communities, it doesn't look like sending more armed militia into them. So really holding police accountable, and really not just giving Black people the opportunity to live, but also to thrive.
That's very, very, very important. I know that that you go to the barbershop, and the barbershop isn't the barbershop anymore because nobody can go there. But I was talking to some people, and there's this debate about how do we get there, and do we need to stay in the streets until we get those gains, or when can you ease back? It seems to be a very difficult kind of decision that the protest is going to face, or the movement is going to face, to translate this from energy into action. Do we see like the components are there? I know Kiara might have some thoughts about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the system is working in exactly the way it's intended to. So like I said, how long do we have to wait? How long are we going to wait for action? This has happened over and over again. There's been no accountability. So no, I don't say we ease up. I say you shut it down.
All right, we're going to get our final thoughts on here. We've got about a minute and a half left of the show. Any parting thoughts from the panel here?
I often wonder, can a cop be effective in a neighborhood or a community if he's afraid of the neighborhood he's been brought there to police? It's scary to know that the cop that's working for you or there to protect and serve you is actually afraid of you based on things that he's heard about you. It's just insane to me.
I would say we need our white allies to be speaking up and not being quiet. Black people have been doing this work and been doing all the talking for a long time. We need you to step up and do your part.
A big piece of it is, I would say, economic and political inclusion. Those people downtown tearing those buildings up because they don't own anything down there, and we feel like we don't have a voice. And so I appreciate Stevante Clark for stepping up and being included in this whole process and the scheme of things. But we need to be more active and more involved. Because
everybody,
we don't feel like we're included in the conversation. So you know what I'm saying? And we don't own anything downtown, so that's why we're still inclined to tear it up.
That's right.
All right. Well, the good news is that the city was talking about some economic empowerment actions before this started, and hopefully this will put that into hyperdrive. I appreciate everybody being on the show and having this conversation.